Hi everyone, welcome to the continuation video on my recent blog post about ISCP. I'll try to explain how it currently works and propose a solution on how to keep the scalability aspect of ISCP while also guaranteeing security. So many of you already know that the Tangle is a directed acyclic graph. There are a lot of benefits to that type of data structure over a traditional blockchain, like being able to scale better by achieving consensus asynchronously, while blockchains are synchronous consensus mechanisms, but the trade-off is you lose total order. Total order is essential for Ethereum-based smart contracts and any other smart contract type that follows a similar paradigm. So ISCP is a layer 2 solution. You can essentially run many smart contract chains in parallel. Each of these chains have total order and they're independent from one another. Each of these chains are governed by a committee of nodes. And you interact with these chains by sending funds from the Tangle, which is layer 1, which has global consensus, to a specific smart contract chain, and then interacting with that chain. The problem here is, what happens if the committee of nodes is malicious? They can essentially steal your funds, because when you send them your funds, their private keys, they can collude and produce enough valid signatures to steal your funds. And there currently is no mechanism to prevent this. Yes, everything is anchored to the Tangle, but the anchoring to the Tangle is only proof that the committee came to consensus on a valid state transition. It doesn't have to essentially be valid. It just means that they came to consensus. So what can essentially happen? They have state I, doesn't matter which of these blockchains block iteration it is, block height. They produce a new state transition, sign off, enough signatures are collected and validated. They essentially steal all your funds, or at least empty the contract, and enter the smart contract chain account, and produce a new state transition. From the perspective of layer 1, this is totally valid. They're not aware of what are smart contracts and how to use them, and what is valid and what is not. They only know that the committee signed off of it and a supermajority agreed. So here's the problem. The point of smart contracts is to make code law. And in this case, even though the code is robust and doesn't have any bugs, if the committee of nodes is malicious, code is not law. The committee is law. Yes, there are many solutions how you can solve it. Essentially, you can maybe even have all of those solutions implemented. It doesn't really matter. I'll give a solution that came from, at least it was inspired by the concept of extended UTXOs introduced by Cardano and optimistic rollups used in Ethereum. At least the concept behind optimistic rollups. So the key point of an extended UTXO, you can define how the UTXO can be consumed, who can consume it, and how. So that means from the perspective of the smart contract chain, they would consume it in the exact same way. They would produce a new state, store the hash, additional metadata, of course, like the account balances and everything. And of course, if someone requests a withdrawal, the withdrawal would go through, but it would also be an extended UTXO, which would be locked for a period of delta, time delta, where delta is the time that we allow for misbehavior to be detected. This is a concept from the optimistic rollups in Ethereum. And once delta is elapsed, if no misbehavior is detected, the bearer, the owner of the UTXO can consume it and continue normally on layer 1 or any other smart contract chain. We leave time delta so that misbehavior can be detected. Anyone can detect misbehavior, and you report misbehavior by consuming the latest state output, and all the previous state outputs, and all the withdrawn requests or withdrawn UTXOs that are locked. You can do it, and by producing initially the same state before misbehavior happened. Doing this, you essentially elect a new committee to take on, and from the malicious committee, it takes over the entire smart contract chain. You liquidate the collateral of the malicious committee. You get a reward. Of course, you can fund the treasury, or it doesn't. How you distribute their liquidated collateral can be later determined, doesn't matter. You can do it in many ways. But this is the key concept. The concept is layer 1 is not aware of the smart contracts happening on side chains, but you or anyone else can report and prove deterministic misbehavior. In doing so, would revert the state on layer 1 back to the state before the misbehavior happened. In doing such, you still preserve the horizontal scaling of ISCP, because you can have many of these state transitions in parallel, but you also preserve the security aspect if there is a malicious intent from a malicious committee, that you can detect it on layer 1 and essentially revert it and have global consensus on it. And that's more or less the key aspect. These things here are just redundant state copies of this current state, just to keep it in memory so it doesn't get pruned. They would have a minimal balance defined by the dust protection mechanism, and they would live for time delta. Essentially, when this is unlocked, this is free to be consumed. If no misbehavior is detected in time delta, you can essentially consume it. And of course, the funds would go to the latest state. And that is that. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments.